as they work toward a trade deal. The pound weakening after two Bank of England policymakers unexpectedly voted for an interest rate cut. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is up 0.5% or 16 points at 3093. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.7% or 183 points at 27,676. And the Nasdaq's up 0.7% or 56 points at 8466. 10-year Treasury down 19/32, yield 1.88%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.65%. NYMEX crude oil is up 2%, up $1.11 at $57.46 a barrel. COMEX gold down 1/3% on $5.40 at $14.8760 an ounce. The euro 1.1063 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.14. Ralph Lauren is up about 13% right now after the apparel maker reported same-store sales growth across its three regions, including in the key North American market. However, the company sees ongoing unrest in Hong Kong limiting sales gains. Also watching shares of PG&E. They are down 2%. The California utility that went bankrupt in January after its equipment sparked deadly wildfires expects as much as $6.3 billion in after-tax costs from the blazes, its Chapter 11 case, and the recent blackouts. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Aaron, thanks so much. You can be a coach for 24 years. You can grind it out every game, and then you can wait for the big games. Or you can be a fan and do the same thing. Just go through the motions, whatever the sport. Long ago and far away, a gentleman from Natick, Massachusetts, launched a football field field for Boston College and happened to beat Miami. This is 1984. And his name was Flutie. An equivalent game was played last weekend, and it was Harvard and Dartmouth. Tim Murphy joins us right now. Tim, I am speechless over the excellence of that game. Give us just a window into this magical game of Dartmouth stealing that game from your Harvard.
Well, thanks very much, fellas. Really appreciate that. It was a great game. So proud of our kids. And obviously, when you lose a game like that, it is gut-wrenching. Maybe not in the context of the real world, but for our kids who are so passionate, so invested, it is painful. And I told my kids after the game, you know, in any endeavor, any job, relationship, competition, if you give it absolutely everything you have, you can have no regrets. Unfortunately, it doesn't make it any less painful.
Fit Dartmouth and your excellence against Dartmouth, fit them into greater NCAA football. There's the aching question of no playoffs, Ivy League, etc. They can't prove themselves in this bowl or that bowl. How does Dartmouth and, for that matter, Harvard fit into the competitiveness of 2019 NCAA football?
Well, I really believe, having, coached at multiple levels, having coached at the FBS level as a head coach, having coached in the FCS level for a lot longer than that. A great team like Dartmouth, some of the great Harvard teams we have, we absolutely could compete for the national championship. When I was the head coach at the University of Maine, wow, that's 30 years ago, we went to the FCS playoff, played national champions, Georgia Southern University, took them to overtime. So my context is there's no question the great teams in the Ivy League who compete at the highest level.
Paul, the University of Maine mascot is the black fly.
The summer black fly. Coach, you're bringing your team down to New York City this weekend to play at Columbia. Tell us about Columbia.
Well, we think Columbia has a terrific football team. It's certainly been an up and down season, but they're a tough, athletic team. They're really well coached, and the thing that really got our attention in terms of who they really are and is a really good barometer for what we're going to face is their 44-6 win over the University of Pennsylvania. So this is a good team. They've had some bad luck. They've struggled at times, but they're a good football team, and we know exactly that's what we're going to get at Columbia this weekend.
So, Coach, your Harvard Crimson is 4-3 this year, kind of up and down. What do you make of your team at this point of the season?
Well, I think we're a good football team. There's no question about that. It's just the last two games we played two undefeated teams. Both went down to literally the last play of the game, and we just fell short.
within all this of what's it like to do a 9-6 game? I mean, I got NFL games now that look like basketball. The Celtics, somebody beat Syracuse, Virginia beat Syracuse last night, and it looked lower than an NFL football game. What do you tell the kids when they're addicted to watching NFL on the weekend about how to play a 9-6 game, Coach?
Well, I'll tell you, we've been at both ends of the spectrum this year, fellas. In one game, we won 60-something to 17, and here we had a 9-inning baseball game, 9-6. It all comes down to, in our program, it all starts with defense. And when you're going to play a great defensive team like Dartmouth, which was number one in the nation, we were not far behind, at least in rush defense. You know it's going to be a low-scoring game, and I mean, that's what real football is all about. This week, anything could happen.
So, Coach, you're coming into the 8th game of the season, getting into, obviously, the long run of the schedule. Tell us about the health of the Harvard team right now.
The players have finals. Come on, it's Harvard. They have exams. Continue.
We're never completely healthy at this stage of the game. And it's definitely a next man up mentality. And we've done a really good job with that. We've had some guys banged up. The next guys up have done a great job. There's no woe is me, and we'll be ready to play.
Tim Murphy, thank you so much. That was really special last weekend as he looks forward to Columbia. We thank him so much. You can catch this weekend's Columbia Crimson game. They take on Columbia. Is that at Morningside Heights?
I believe it is.
Oh, my word. On Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston with pregame coverage. That starts Saturday. 12:30 p.m. Did we go down when we were talking football there, or are we still launched into the stratosphere? Look at that, we're up 200 points.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of positive trade. That's all we need. It's as simple as that. We've seen that starting from the fourth quarter of last year when this trade issue reared its ugly head, and I think it's as simple as that.
Paul, I just don't know if I should get out of cash.
I don't know. I think wait just a little bit longer.
I need some signals here. 10-year yield correlates even better. I'm not on the 2% watch on the 10-year, but a 1.89. Round that up, 1.90 on the 10-year yield really correlates nicely. And again, as a proxy, on a global basis, yen confirms 109.15. Weaker yen, that is usually that risk-off feel. And the yen, maybe it ought to be a 109.25 or whatever, but who's splitting hairs? I mean, it's amazing.
And on the Uber Watch, I know that's on your screen as well. Kind of stabilizing. No, I think I see 13 million shares have traded today, so he must have his block in there somewhere. But stabilized a little bit. Looks like maybe this thing's trying to find a little bit of a bid here.
We had that huge stabilize.
So it's interesting. Mandeep Singh from Bloomberg Intelligence was on earlier yesterday and saying that.
What did he say?
He says, he's still, they don't have the buy, hold, sell their BI, but I got a bullish sense from him that he's still kind of buying off on this whole thing that the total addressable market is huge for all this transportation stuff. And let's just wait out this selling here of the shares, and they're going to start putting up some numbers. If they can execute, they'll put up some numbers, and that'll be good for the stock. So, but again, there's this well below its IPO price, and then we've had a ton of selling yesterday when the lockup expired, a little bit more today. So usually it takes a few days for this thing to kind of wash out, and then we'll see if there's any kind of bid.
The chart is not textbook short. I don't want to be that gloomy, but it's got elements, I would say, of that as well. Anything else on the radar here?
We have Disney earnings after the close.
Was a 2 million share block trade Barry Ritholtz? I think
that might have been Barry.
It might have been Barry.
Getting his execution. Yes, we have Disney after the close, and it's a little bit about the earnings. How's ESPN going and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be looking at that. But investors obviously are going to be listening to Bob Iger talking about the streaming business.
I've been remiss. Paul, give us a streaming update. There's 47 pieces of mail in the mailbox. I need to stream now.
Exactly, and Bob Iger, Bloomberg Business Week has a cover story on Bob Iger and just kind of saying, how focused he is on this pivot of the Walt Disney Company to a streaming company.
What is their strategy versus Peacock, which I believe is giving it away?
Yeah, they are not giving it away. They are focusing on premium content, all that stuff. And they just spent $70 billion buying a lot of the 21st Century Fox business. So they're going to focus on. We've got the Star Wars, we've got all the Marvel stuff, we've got all the Pixar stuff, we've got all the.
To be clear here, no one else will have it.
No one else will have it.
If I need my Star Wars addiction, which is Empire Strikes Back, that that winter scene.
That's right.
I'm only going to get it.
You're only going to get it there. And so they're really focusing on, we have the best content, and they're pricing it very aggressively. Yeah, and they're pricing it aggressively. And the downside of that is they're not going to make money on that business for another 3, maybe 4 years.
Okay, but that's James Diamond in the charge card business and the frequent flyer miles. Is these guys on this consumer capture have vectors out 3, 4, 5 years, right?
Yeah, and the question is, do shareholders, and the shareholders right now seem to be giving Walt Disney Company the benefit of the doubt.
Very quickly, Lachlan Murdoch looking awful good. I mean, he's been watching way too much Succession. Fox surprised, right?
Yeah, Fox surprised. I mean, they're a focused company.
TV.
Yeah, this is news and sports. It's as simple as that. If you believe in the value of Fox News and live sports, you take a look at that.
So you think the 2 million share block trade on Fox, that could be Shepard Smith going out? We say good morning to Mr. Smith with our great respect for his contribution to interview and news. This is Bloomberg.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St. Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
World 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at Treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Thursday morning from New York City to our worldwide audience. Lisa Abramowitz and I are broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Year Ahead Conference at the Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. It is a green day today. Look at this, risk on day. We will get the latest. It looks like China trade getting a little bit better on the margin. We'll get the latest from that coming up. But first, let's go to Karen Moscow, Bloomberg News, for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Paul, thank you. And yes, China trade is helping the markets. The S&P 500 rising to a record after China said it agreed with the U.S. to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. The pound is weakening after 2 Bank of England policymakers unexpectedly voted for an interest rate cut. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is up 0.6% or 17 points at 3093. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.7% or 206 points at 27,698, and the Nasdaq's up 0.7% or 55 points at 8465. 10-year Treasury down 22/32. The yield 1.89%. Yield on the 2-year 1.65%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.9% or $1.05 at 57.41 a barrel, and COMEX gold is down 0.5% or $7.60 at 14.8550 an ounce. The euro this morning is at 1.1063 against the dollar. The yen at 109.16, and the pound is at 1.2831. U.S. consumer comfort fell to the lowest level in a while. The Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index sank 1.9 points to 59.1 in the week that ended November 3rd, with the personal finances gauge falling to the lowest since January and posting the steepest decline of the three components. And the Federal Reserve is sparking what could be a busy end of the year for Goldman Sachs Group. President John Waldron tells us the backlogs are strong and it sees more deal conversations taking place as central banks move to help stimulate markets. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
Aaron, thank you so much. Bloomberg Markets brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, offering hands-on learning in the largest makerspace in New Jersey for those working in manufacturing and mechatronics. More at njit.edu/manufacturing. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, joining us here from the 2019 Year Ahead Summit, or should we say 2020 Year Ahead Summit, which is being hosted here at Bloomberg headquarters in New York. Dave, I'm trying to figure out how to gauge the reaction of markets to trade headlines at this point. How much can we really read into any positive or negative versus just algos doing what they do?
Yeah, maybe more the latter, but at the very least, on the margins, things are looking better. And then you get some results on top of that go over well. I mean, Qualcomm in particular is one stock in focus. It's up 8.5% in the wake of their results that were out late yesterday. And it's about what those numbers and what Qualcomm's view in terms of their current fiscal quarter suggest about the smartphone market. Basically, that things are starting to pick up because, after all, if you're buying the phones, you need the chips in the phones, and Qualcomm makes those chips. So you put it all together, and that's a plus in an area of the market that certainly is important to a whole lot of investors. And, you can spot other examples like that. Paul, what's going on with the media stocks today? I mean, you had numbers out of Fox and Discovery and Dish Network that were all well received. And Dish is actually going to raise $1 billion through a rights offering to be able to invest in the next generation of wireless services. So
that one kind of surprised me. The rights offering, I usually associate rights offering with being dilutive to existing shareholders, yet the stock is up 3%. So I guess it's the fact that Charlie Ergen, the founder and CEO, is going to be putting a lot of his money in, I guess.
Exactly. That in essence, he's backstopping it. He's going to buy whatever other shareholders don't. And another area that's interesting is what's going on with sort of the apparel makers and the luxury goods makers. And we have seen, especially the luxury stocks, kind of bounce around lately. You had figures out of Ralph Lauren that went over well for their fiscal second quarter. Sales at stores open more than a year, beating estimates. Earnings higher than analysts expected. Ralph Lauren's up 13.5%. So you look at PVH, which is Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger. You look at Capri Holdings, which is Michael Kors. You look at Tapestry, which is Coach. All those stocks up more than 4%.
Meanwhile, Expedia tumbling.
Yeah. Expedia and TripAdvisor.
TripAdvisor
both had numbers out late yesterday, and they both did not go over well. So, that's an area of concern. And there's more competition. Let's face it. We were talking last hour about Google Flights.
Yep.
And how that's becoming more of an issue for the online travel companies. And TripAdvisors, their numbers for the third quarter, whether you're looking at earnings or sales, missed the lowest analyst estimates. That's always a bad sign. Now, Expedia has tried to diversify, to kind of put themselves in a position that maybe they don't get beaten up as badly as things go more online. It hasn't quite worked so well, at least it didn't in the latest quarter, with vacation rentals specifically.
Yeah.
Vrbo, vacation rentals by owner.
So, what I'm struggling to understand right now, looking actually at Uber, shares up a little bit more than 1%. So you're getting a little bit of strength there after the bloodbath that we saw. You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
1% isn't much.
No, considering the fact that they lost, 15% of their market value over 2 days or something like that. But there's sort of this existential question right now, which is, are we seeing some sort of reckoning in the startup space, in some of the unicorns that got big before they IPO'd and are struggling afterwards? Is this truly a reckoning, or is this just a momentary ripple that will allow things to go on the way that they have?
Arguably it's a reckoning because, think about WeWork as sort of the poster child in that regard. the idea that they wanted to go public, they couldn't go public, and they've had to overhaul their business, and it's a process has just started for them. And then you look across all the other companies like Uber, their shares for the most part have not done well since they started trading. So it's arguably, really a focus on what's been happening in the private market, the idea that companies don't go public as quickly as they used to, so they don't have that kind of, oversight, in essence, from, money managers that they did in the past. It's all about, venture capital firms and private equity, and it's just not the same kind of approach, or at least it hasn't been. So now we're really seeing the after effects of that. Uber's got to make money sometime to keep investors happy, and that's still a couple of years down the line at a minimum.
You're exactly right. It seems like the market just in the last quarter or two has shifted from a growth at all cost kind of scenario, which is where Uber and Lyft tried to play, to, you got to show me a path to profitability. And we've seen the companies like Uber have said, all right, we're going to move up by 1 year our profit targets. So it'll be really interesting. The next test, I think, for the IPO market and this unicorn thing will be Airbnb, which is a IPO that people are talking about maybe 2020. I have no idea what the valuation is there, although I think it's a huge number, and it's a question of what kind of message they're going to bring to the market. Have they learned the lesson from some of these companies in 2019?
Yeah, and what happens in terms of the insiders, the executives and investors when they do get the chance to sell the shares? We certainly saw the effect this week with Uber. We're going to see it with a couple more companies over the next few months as lockup periods related to initial public offerings expire. So, that will be something to watch, again, into next year with Airbnb down the line.
Meanwhile, I should take note of the bond market right now, because you are seeing 10-year Treasury yields rip higher. You're seeing them reach the highest level since July 31st, currently at 1.896%. And this comes in the heels of some better than expected data, in particular with jobless filings, which came in lower than people expected. But interesting to watch this.
Right, and with two areas lower on the day out of the 11 main industry groups in the S&P 500, real estate and utilities.
Yep.
Indeed.
There you go.
Lisa knew the words before they came out of my mouth.
I'm just waiting for it.
The
it's
market
is push-pull.
Yeah, that's cycling out of the risk-averse trade, and maybe take on a little bit more risk. Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thanks so much for that color in the market. Opening up very strong here with the NASDAQ up 15, the Dow up 190. On positive, just the same story. A little bit of positive news out today about trade, plus some good earnings out, and that's all it needs for this market. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, an aide to Vice President Mike Pence has arrived on Capitol Hill to testify behind closed doors in the House impeachment investigation. Jennifer Williams is a career Foreign Service officer in the State Department, detailed to Pence's office as a Europe and Russia advisor. She is said to have been on the July 25th phone call between President Trump and Ukraine's leader that has sparked the impeachment inquiry. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton has also been invited to testify today. So far, he has failed to show. Meantime, President Trump is pushing back at a Washington Post report that Attorney General William Barr turned down his request to speak out about the call. More on that from Bloomberg's Amy Morris.
President Trump tweets that Barr did not refuse the request from him to hold a news conference about Ukraine. He's rejecting the report that says he'd wanted Barr to say no laws were broken in that July 25th call with the Ukrainian president, tweeting, quote, Bill Barr did not decline my request, and he says the story is a fake con job and that the Justice Department had already ruled that the call was good. That call is at the heart of the impeachment inquiry. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson is retiring. After more than 3 years leading a department he joined as a patrolman in 1988, Johnson's spokesman says he will hold a news conference later today. The superintendent signaled earlier this week that his decision would have nothing to do with an investigation into him being found asleep at the wheel of his SUV. Johnson became Chicago's top cop during one of the most violent chapters in the city's history. He had also become a recent foil for President Trump. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Intellectual property, one of the most valuable things we market in Asia.
I understand you're trying to rival the likes of San Francisco, New York.
We have our own brand of intellectual property.
Let's focus first on this U.S.-China trade story.
Find out why it's so valuable.
Do you need to see substance in an agreement or just that they stop shouting at each other?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern, on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End, and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
At Argos, get them the toys they're dreaming of this Christmas. Save 20% when you spend £20 or more on toys with code TOYS20, including top brands like Peppa Pig and Lego. Enjoy same-day home delivery 7 days a week. With Argos, you're good to go. Offer ends the 12th of November, subject to availability. Exclusions apply. Delivery conditions apply. Order by 6 p.m. 90% UK coverage.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile, all for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online from the 8th of November. £200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only, club card app required, exclusions apply, double data only on pay monthly, home from home destinations. First payment payable up front, subject to status, see online for details.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks are up. They started climbing early after China said it had agreed with America to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases. They work toward a trade deal. Treasuries and gold are down. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 0.6%, up 18. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 0.75%, up 210 points, while the Nasdaq is up 0.75%, up 60. The 10-year is down 22.30 seconds at 1.89%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.4% at 57.13 a barrel, while COMEX gold is in the reds, down 0.6% at 14.8350 an ounce. The dollar yen stands at 109.18. The euro is $1.1056. The euro is $1.2819. Wells Fargo's new leader is starting to install lieutenants to help him right the bank. Chief Executive Officer Charlie Scharf plans to name Bill Daley, the former White House Chief of Staff, to a senior post. Let's check with WFC right now. It's up 1.4%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Year Ahead Conference here at the Bloomberg headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. Let's talk a little healthcare right here and healthcare innovation. We welcome Amy Quirk. She's the CEO of Innovation Ochsner. It's part of the Ochsner Health System. Amy, thanks so much for joining us. I know you spoke at a panel earlier today at the Bloomberg Year Ahead Conference. Tell us a little bit about your company and what you guys are trying to do.
Sure. Great to be with you today, Paul, and great to be part of the Year Ahead. So Ochsner Health System is one of the largest healthcare providers in the Gulf South. And about 5 years ago, we understood we really needed to move quickly to help change and advance our system, the way that we're delivering care, to deliver health and not just health care. So we formed Innovation Ochsner as an innovation company, a startup, if you will, within the health system to introduce new thinking, new ideas where we could quickly think about new experiments, test them in the real world, and then scale them within our system and beyond so that we could provide better care and better outcomes for our patients.
Can you give us a specific example of one initiative that you've done that's materially reduced perhaps mortality or had some other beneficial effects?
So we've had a lot of different initiatives over the year. We have a pretty diverse portfolio, but one of the things we took on really early was chronic disease. And we saw that as a real opportunity that was ripe for change for a bunch of reasons. Well, first of all, it's a huge problem for the country, certainly in our region, but really everywhere. It's driving 86% of healthcare costs, 75% of deaths.
Heart disease.
Yes, heart disease, diabetes, and it affects so many Americans. In fact, many Americans have multiple chronic conditions. And as we see more people aging, we're going to see an increase in chronic disease. And yet our model of healthcare is really focused on an acute care model. So you go in, you present sick, you get a knee replacement, you have a surgery, it gets fixed. Chronic disease is chronic. It stays with you. And so the episodic model of care that exists today doesn't really work well for chronic disease. So what we did is
leverage digital tools. So things like a smartphone, which today 88% of Americans have access to a smartphone and use it almost constantly, is what they say. So how do we use tools like that to create a more continuous care model where we're understanding patients, their readings from home, and so patients can, with the click of a button, send information into us about their blood pressure readings, their blood sugar levels. They do this multiple times a week because they want to do it. They don't mind doing it. It's really easy. And they also tell us a lot more about themselves than what we traditionally look at in healthcare, because health is really a lot more than just what's in the clinical record. It's about your behaviors. It's about your social circumstances. It's about the environment. How can we know more about that? And so together, that additional information we've been using to create a virtual model to bring care for chronic disease into the patient's lives wherever they are, so that the point of care is where the patient is, rather than coming into our clinic 4 times a year. They're receiving support and care that helps them support behavior change, that helps get their disease in control and help them live their best lives. And so what we see is 3 times the rates of improved disease control through these programs. We see high levels of satisfaction. We see increases in medication adherence. We see reduced healthcare costs, which is a big thing. And how much of this is tracking somebody and potentially invasive to their personal lives? Well, first of all, this is all voluntary, right? And it's all in the confines of, we hope, is a trusted healthcare system. We're subject to all of our privacy security rules. This is going to a care team of doctors, of pharmacists, of health coaches who are really there to support you, and the patient's deciding what they want to share with us and tell us, and we're using that, putting that into our formula to say, okay, how can we support you on your journey to live your best life? And so I think that what we found is patients want this because, they come in and traditionally they would go in and have 15 minutes with their doctor to talk about all of their health needs, and that's just not enough time, and it's too narrow. And so if we know a little bit more about them and can help inform some of the decisions that they make and support them so that they're empowered to make those decisions themselves, they'll produce the change that will empower them to live their best lives, and we're their partner in that. And that's really where we're trying to go.
So I have, just in my working life, I've seen in the corporate health plans that I've been involved in, like here at Bloomberg, it's much more emphasis placed on the wellness aspect as opposed to here are the doctors in your system. Do you think corporate America is generally moving fast enough in that regard?
No, we're not moving fast enough, and there's a whole lot of reasons. I think there's an awareness that something fundamentally has to change in so many aspects of our healthcare system because the costs are just going up and the outcomes are not getting better. And with the population changes coming down the road, right, more people, the baby boomers getting older, that there's going to be even more of that. And so we have a lot of work to do to really figure out how these new modalities, whether they're digital health, telemedicine, whatever you want to call it, really become more accessible, and the reimbursement policies and the payment policies help mirror some of the prevention work that really can be done so that we can keep people living and not really going to the hospital and not going to sites of care where they're just able to integrate health into their everyday lives and make decisions. And it's more holistic than what we've traditionally thought about it. Amy Quirk, thank you so much for being with us. Amy Quirk is Chief Executive Officer of Innovation Auctioneer, joining us from the Year Ahead conference. And I got to say, one thing that's really exciting to me about collecting this data is that potentially scientists could use it, researchers to potentially evolve new care. And, you could strip it of some of its identity. Right. But I think that's something exciting.
Yeah, it's real-time data. Yeah.
Anyway, coming up, we're going to be speaking about trade, which has been whipsawing markets one way or another, depending on where things are going. We are broadcasting live from the Year Ahead conference, where we take a look at everything from the future of healthcare to the future of technology. This is Bloomberg Markets.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are in the green with more progress reported in the U.S.-China trade talks. Beijing said that both sides have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases. Fitbit reported revenue that beat analyst estimates in its first quarterly results since Google announced its planned acquisition of the wearable technology company. The companies expect the $2.1 billion transaction to close sometime in 2020. Quarterly profit beat estimates at Toyota. The automaker reported healthy sales of RAV4s in the U.S. Cost controls have also helped Toyota maintain earnings despite slowing global demand. And Netflix is vowing to spend more on programming in the face of increasing competition. The biggest streaming service already expects to spend $15 billion this year. That's more than any of its rivals. CEO Reed Hastings said Netflix is just getting started. He said the company has been strong in series. Now it's getting better at movies. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action. Look how he makes eye contact with his person. That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
The happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Did you know BT's business broadband comes with an always connected guarantee?
Always connected? We can't guarantee that. Nobody can.
BT can.
No, it's impossible. What if a squirrel bites through your cable?
That's when the 4G backup kicks in.
4G backup?
Yup.
Well, squirrels can't bite through 4G.
Exactly.
BT Business Broadband with the always connected, squirrel-proof guarantee. BT, beyond limits. Subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile, all for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online from the 8th of November. £200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only, club card app required, exclusions apply, double data only on pay monthly, home from home destinations. First payment payable up front, subject to status, see online for details.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to get the latest on the U.S.-China trade situation with Bloomberg's Michael McKee. Plus, we're going to sit down with Barry Ritholtz and get the latest on his interview with Eugene Fama from the University of Chicago. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, Paul, as you mentioned, China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a deal between the two sides. Stocks are reacting positively with U.S. equities up to new highs. Ben Emmons, Medley Global Advisors, Managing Director of Global Macro Strategy, tells Bloomberg this would indeed be a very good thing if and when it starts to happen.
And so we're getting again what we call the green shoots, which happened earlier this year too. So I would think that manufacturing has some boost here into the first quarter, and then more of a boost would happen next year when the tariffs really are rolled back and you're seeing a bigger relief from the economy. So it will take still 2 quarters to see the real impacts from this.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P's up 0.5%, up 16. The Dow's up 0.8%, up 216. The Nasdaq's up 0.7%, up 59. The 10-year is down 23.30 seconds. The yield is about 1.9%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.1% at 56.99 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 1.1% at 14.76 even per ounce. The dollar yen stands at 109.22. The euro is $1.1050. The British pound $1.28.15. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
China-U.S. trade, it's on again, it's off again. Today feels a little bit on again. We have the markets reacting. Let's get the latest on what is going on with the daily U.S.-China trade saga. We welcome Bloomberg News' Mike McKee. He's economics editor. Mike, so it's interesting. It looks like China is saying that the U.S. has agreed to tariff rollbacks if phase one deal is reached. What do we know about this?
Well, you said the magic word there, if.
Okay.
And that's in the statement from the Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesman. If an agreement is reached, then the two sides should roll back additional tariffs. So first we got to get past the if and get an agreement reached, and then they have to figure out which tariffs would be reduced and then at what pace. So there's a long way to go between now and any kind of actual impact on anything.
Although we are getting more positive talk, and we are actually getting talk out of China, period, the end. And this is meaningful, right?
I would say that it's meaningful that the Chinese are actually talking about the possibility of a deal, because they haven't been talking about that in the past. They've let the U.S. do most of the talking. And in this case, they're now saying a deal is possible and the two sides have made progress. So that's good news. But remember, we went through this in June. The presidents of the United States and China got together at the G20 and said, we're putting the trade war on hold and everything's going to be better. And then by August, the president was imposing new tariffs. President Trump was imposing new tariffs on China, and China was retaliating. So I think until something is actually in place and signed by the leaders, you can't really make any kind of determination about what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, here to make a determination is Barry Ritholtz, who is walking by, and we said, we're talking trade. He said, I'm sitting down, so nice to see you, Barry. Thinking a lot about trade these days?
Yeah, this has very much a Lucy and the football with Charlie Brown sort of feel. I'm astonished traders keep trying to kick the football, and Lucy keeps pulling it away. Every single time we've seen this, it's the world's greatest sucker trade, and yet they keep falling for it. It's amazing.
Mike, why is that?
That's a question for Barry. I was thinking that while he was saying it. I think everybody's just so desperate for a reason to keep buying equities that any kind of good headline. And when we say people, I mean, the machines are reading the headlines. and they're trading on this, and then you get a momentum going, and then people have to chase that. So I'm not really sure there's a lot of conviction that this is going to change the world.
Hold on a second. But Paul, come in here, because we've talked to person after person who said, you know what, we're getting more constructive. We feel like the risk is to the upside. So perhaps it's the machines, but there are people behind those machines who have a more constructive feel.
It seems like it, and it seems like it's, whether it's Brexit or China trade or anything like that. But Michael McKee, we haven't even, have we heard anything from the U.S. in response to what China is suggesting here? I haven't read a tweet, or I guess I'm looking for tweets, not press releases.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the government works these days. No, we haven't heard any confirmation of this from the U.S. And again, what we seem to be talking about is some sort of phased rollback of the tariffs that the president put in place in September on the $112 billion in Chinese goods, and then the Chinese retaliation, and then maybe they don't impose the October 15th tariffs and the December 15th tariffs. That still leaves about $360 billion worth of goods that are tariffed, and that trade war goes on. We're coming up on the deadline for the president to do something or kick the can down the road on the European auto tariffs. So trade wars are still out there. They're still going to be having an effect on the economy. And if you're looking at company bottom lines, they're still going to be paying extra for the raw materials that they import from China and other countries affected by tariffs. Steel tariffs are still in place. So it's not like it's going to be an immediate game changer for the overall economy.
This feels like it's almost a free energy perpetual motion machine. We put out a whole bunch of tariffs and roil the economy. We affect corporate decision making because of the uncertainty. And then a tweet or something else gets floated, and all this goes away. Where I come from, 6 inches forward, 6 inches back, you haven't gone anywhere. But yet this seems to be a continual stairway up and up and up. Markets are at all-time highs. And it's not like earnings are so spectacular. They're pretty good. They're beating lowered expectations, but they're not shooting the lights out.
But Barry, we're not hearing, or at least we haven't heard any strategists say, boy, this market's expensive. We've had a 23 or 4% increase in the S&P this year with no real growth in earnings. Shouldn't that make the market more expensive?
Following a year where the markets were flat and earnings have gradually improved in a very low inflation environment, I wouldn't say markets are very expensive, but they're certainly fully valued, if not richly valued.
Barry, we've got much more with you, so stay with us. Mike, final thoughts on sort of this step up, and are we moving towards something here?
Well, we do seem to be moving towards some sort of phase one agreement. Whether there'll be a phase two is an open question, and what's in phase one is still something of an open question. I personally wouldn't trade on the idea that there's going to be some sort of significant impact to corporate earnings and therefore on the economy at this point, but it is something to keep an eye on, and we can keep our fingers crossed that something actually does come through.
Yeah, but you know what? It's interesting. Michael McKee, thank you, as always, for your incredible insights on this. I do think it's interesting that markets in general do feel like we have shifted beyond a tit-for-tat escalation. We've moved way beyond that, too. Let's get down to it and try to make it better for both of us. So I think that has been a shift in sentiment.
Well, we've got a 2% growth economy, and that doesn't seem to be changing because of the tariffs. And if going forward, Barry and his folks can make money in a 2% economy, great. So don't count on an extra boost from trade.
Michael McKee, Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent on U.S.-China trade. Barry Ritholtz, Bloomberg opinion columnist and moneymaker in a 2% environment. We're going to be speaking with you coming up on exactly how you plan to do that. Right now, though, let's head over to our 1901 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
All right, Lisa, thank you. Republicans plan to try to subpoena the whistleblower when public impeachment proceedings begin against President Trump. House Oversight Ranking Republican Jim Jordan says the intelligence figure who first flagged the president's July 25th phone call with Ukraine will be on the GOP witness list, though Democrats who run the hearings aren't likely to approve it. One of the transcripts of closed-door testimony released yesterday shows Republicans naming the alleged whistleblower to try to get a witness to confirm it. House Judiciary Chairman Gerald Nadler is promising the public process will be fair to President Trump.
In the Judiciary Committee, we're going to have full due process for the president, and that means that if there's any exculpatory evidence, any evidence tending to show that he's innocent, whether it's witnesses or anything else, they'll be able to bring it forward.
On Twitter, President Trump says he's been told he'll be denied due process. He says Joe and Hunter Biden, quote, must testify. The first funerals are being held today for the 9 Mormon family members gunned down in a brutal drug cartel ambush in northern Mexico. Julian LeBaron is one of the relatives who found the 3 women and 6 children at the fiery scene.
What kind of men can even call themselves men that murder women and children? And we believe that they did it intentionally.
Mexican authorities have said it may have been mistaken identity. The families had been outspoken against drug cartels. Iran says a UN inspector that it blocked from a nuclear site last week tested positive for suspect traces of explosive nitrates. The claim comes on the same day Iran injected uranium gas into centrifuges at its underground Fordo complex. It's the most significant step away yet from the 2015 nuclear deal with the West that President Trump walked away from last year. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Hello, Vitality Health Insurance.
Oh, hi. Is it true if I join Vitality, I get de facto 5-star rated cover, can speak to a GP 24/7, get rewarded for staying active with things like Starbucks coffee, get a little sausage dog to live with me, and you could beat my current premium by up to 10%?
Absolutely. Except one of those.
It's the dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks are higher, new highs as a matter of fact, after China said it agreed with America to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. Treasuries and gold decline. We look at those numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 0.6%, up 17. Dow's up 0.9%, up 236. The Nasdaq's up 0.75%, up 62. The 10-year's down 25/30 seconds with a yield of 1.90%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.3% at 57.08 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 1.3% at 14.7370 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.27. Euros at 110.47 and the British pound 128.20. Expedia shares tumbled after the company's results showed a decline in revenue growth at its vacation rental business. Shares are down as much as 23%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Year Ahead Conference here at the Bloomberg HQ in Midtown Manhattan. Still with us is Barry Ritholtz, Bloomberg opinion columnist and founder of Ritholtz Capital Management. I think there might be a podcast in there somewhere. Barry, you were out in Chicago earlier in the week and had what I consider some of the heaviest of financial heavyweights on stage in a discussion. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. David Booth, co-founder of Dimensional Funds Advisors, Gene Fama, Nobel laureate. But by the way, that's my new threshold for podcasts. Okay. Only Nobel laureates and billionaires. But Fama is really one of the founding fathers of modern finance, efficient market hypothesis, factor investing. Just go down the list of all his contributions, and he is fairly press shy. Doesn't give a lot of interviews. Doesn't speak a lot. Him and David Booth have known each other for 50 years. Booth was not only a student of his, Fama called him his best student, made him his teaching assistant, and when David Booth decided he would rather apply Fama's theories practically than be an academic, Fama introduced him to folks at Wells Fargo that were creating the very first index fund.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the highlights from the interview. Sure. It was a tremendous interview, and he had some pretty stark things to say about active management.
Well, first you have to understand Gene Fama. He's not only brilliant, but he's a very funny, quirky guy. He's a little bit of a troll. If he was on Twitter, he would be trolling people all day long. So he likes to tweak the establishment, and he likes to take a contrarian position. A perfect example is he said, look, if you're just going to randomly pick stocks or randomly flip a coin, and you do it 100,000 times, under normal mathematical distributions, there's going to be one really, really good coin flipper or one really, really lucky stock picker. How can we tell whether or not the so-called greats are good and talented or just lucky? He said it's almost impossible to tell. And even folks like Warren Buffett, who have shown persistent returns over time, seems to have faltered in the latter parts of their career as the markets themselves became more efficient. Lots of inefficiencies 20, 30, 40 years ago. Good managers can identify them. Much harder to do that today.
I like one of his thoughts that, quote, star managers are really just lucky outliers.
Yeah.
That kind of goes to that theory.
That's exactly right. That it's not just that there's a giant element of chance, but it is all but impossible to tell in advance which of these managers is going to be the lucky one. And in fact, Fama specifically says, he quotes Bill Sharp, another Nobel laureate. He quotes Sharp saying that investing is effectively a zero-sum game, and for every manager that is a winner, there is an offsetting trade that is a loser. And net, why bother? Why not just index? Which is kind of fascinating.
Right, and of course, that's what David Booth was saying, that he has made his life, he's made everyone's lives a lot better with his firm Dimensional by giving them some access to cheap funds. I do want to get to the troll aspect that you're talking about. One of the comments that he had, he said, Wall Street Research, and Paul, you're going to love this as someone who did Wall Street Research for a long time, is roundly blasted for adding nothing that is helpful for its readers. Let's listen to what he had to say. It's business-based pornography. It's not the real thing.
Wow. I mean, that is some presidential level trolling.
That's Twitter level.
He basically says, if Wall Street Research is providing anybody an alpha generating advantage, why would they give it away? Why wouldn't they keep it for themselves? In fact, he goes even further and says, why would a manager open a mutual fund? Why wouldn't they just trade their own money if they can beat the market? And, there are always elements of truth in some of his more outrageous positions. He is just trying to force people to think about
Hold on one second. As somebody who manages money for a living, Barry, what do you feel about that?
I don't disagree with anything he says.
You think it's business-based pornography, Wall Street Research?
Oh, no. I find it so there's two. Let's break that question into two pieces.
Sure.
Is it pornography? Of course not. That's
okay. All right. Fine. Carry on.
Does it generate alpha? Is it something that is anything more than financial entertainment? I have yet to find a fund that says our core competency is we review Wall Street Research and make winning stock picks based on that. To go back to Fama's efficient market hypothesis, and this is really the heart of what he's saying, hey, once you publish that research, it's reflected in stock prices already. That's the core of the efficient market hypothesis. Once it becomes public, there's no advantage to it. And this is where he talks about the star managers. 20, 30 years ago, lots of things weren't public. There was information asymmetries. There were advantages to be had. There was no reg full disclosure. And so some managers were able to, at least on a temporary basis, generate a little alpha. Now, given how fast stuff moves, I even put the question to him, how much has technology helped the efficient market hypothesis? How much faster does this information get reflected in prices? He said, not faster at all. As soon as you make the trade, there it is. It's reflected in the price.
So David Booth, with his billions and his success, how did he do it?
So one of the things that...
And it's Booth as in the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago.
Which he tells a actually very funny story about in the middle of the financial crisis, he had reached a point where he had enough money to last himself and his family for the foreseeable future and decided to make a transformational gift to the Booth, to what was then called the Graduate School of Business at Chicago, who very famously said, we'll never sell the naming rights.
Yeah.
And Booth ends up giving them about $300 million. I believe it's still the largest ever gift to a business school. And the dean said, wow, we would have renamed the school for much less money than this, which I think is pretty hilarious. But Booth took some of Fama's research. Remember, Gene Fama became one of their advisors from the first day Dimensional Funds was launched. He's on their board of directors and has been since day one. His work on factor-based investments, specifically small cap and value, is where Dimensional Funds made their bones. Their first fund was literally a micro-cap fund, which suddenly took off. If you think you're diversified and you only own big caps, well, you're not really diversified. This took off pretty quickly in the early 80s. It worked out well. Then, based on other research, was value and international, and now they're almost $600 billion.
And there you go. You've got your name. You've got your name on a business school. Barry Ritholtz, thank you so much for being with us. Barry Ritholtz, Bloomberg Opinion columnist, also chair and chief investment officer of Ritholtz Wealth Management, host of Masters of Business, which is one of the places that you can hear this tremendous interview with Eugene Fama, Nobel Prize winner, and in many ways the father of modern finance. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg Markets.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Teaching shapes lives. If you're considering a career in teaching, you could be eligible for a £26,000 tax-free training bursary. Find out about the financial support to help you start your career in the classroom. Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching. Bursary subject to eligibility. Selected subjects only.
Look at that. A riveting quest. A glorious opportunity. A scratch card. Yet he remains unfazed by the challenge, wavering at nothing.
Miss, please keep it down. We're in the quiet area.
Sorry. Here we are. The moment of truth as he reaches the end of... Instant excitement with scratch cards from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Search Dream Big, Play Small. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile. All for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online from the 8th of November. £200 max spend per shop. In-store spend only. Club Card app required. Exclusions apply. Double data only on pay monthly. Home from home destinations. First payment payable up front. Subject to status. See online for details.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
What we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, stocks versus bonds as stocks rally. Bonds sell off. How high can yields go before it stymies the stock rally? Plus, we'll take a look at the year ahead for banks with Allison Williams. Right now, though, let's head to our own Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Trade hopes are pushing U.S. stock indices to more record highs. We look at those numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.6%, up 18. The Dow's up 0.9%, up 248. Nasdaq's up 0.75%, up 64. The 10-year is down 29.30 seconds. The yield 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.5% at 57.23 a barrel, while COMEX goes down 1.6% at 14.69.70 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.32. The euro $1.10.44, and the British pound $1.28.22. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. We continue with more scintillating conversation from Lisa and Paul.
Greg Jarrett, thank you so much. We will try to be scintillating. The markets are certainly scintillating here. Equity markets up very strongly here. Let's see where the action is with small caps. We welcome Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what's going on in small cap world?
Well, smaller companies are gaining more than larger ones. We can start there. The Russell 2000 index up 0.8%, and the S&P 500 is higher by 0.6%. One of the Russell's biggest gains belongs to Collegium Pharmaceutical, whose ticker is COLL. The drug maker has surged 32.5%. Collegium said its pain reliever Xtampza had been cleared for coverage by more insurers. Now, Invacare, ticker IVC, has gained 34%. The medical distributor had a narrower third-quarter loss than analysts expected in a Bloomberg survey. And Next Tier Oilfield Solutions, ticker NEX, has risen almost 30%. The oil services company's third-quarter profit and revenue were higher than projections. Russell's steepest drop by far belongs to Party City Holdco, ticker PRTY. The retailer of party supplies has tumbled 57%. Wow. Party City had an unexpected third-quarter loss as sales missed estimates, and the company cut full-year forecasts. Liberty TripAdvisor Holdings, ticker LTRPA. That's a mouthful.
That's a John Malone.
Yes, indeed it is.
That's why it's a long ticker.
Absolutely. That stock down 30.5%. Now, this company is the largest shareholder in online travel service TripAdvisor, whose third-quarter results were disappointing. TripAdvisor at the moment down almost 23%.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, thank you so much for that. We've been talking a lot about the rally in equities, but bonds have been selling off, and frankly, yields taking a pretty serious move higher. Currently, the biggest one-day rise in 10-year Treasury yields since September 25th to the highest since July 31st. Joining us now, Luke Kawa, who covers all things economics for us here and markets at Bloomberg News. I'm trying to get a sense, Luke, at what point will the rise in bond yields stymie the equity rally?
It's been interesting because when you think about what's been the fallout under the hood of the stock market as bonds have sold off, it's essentially been that through August trade that really worked your everything duration barbell of essentially software and low vol, usually higher income stocks that have been taking it on the chin. That continues to happen, and yet the market continues to go up just because all of these cyclicals are really buying in.
However, to translate, utilities and real estate selling off, market's still up because everything else is going.
Yeah, and even software is still kind of sideways throughout this. But the one interesting way to think about the conduit for kind of bond yields hurting the rise in bond yields trickling through to stocks is we know last year at around this time it took a much higher level in bond yields for the stock market to really be hit by it, and obviously the backdrop is a lot different with the Fed kind of more on hold and getting priced out than back then when we were worried about going past neutral, needing to tighten. I was talking to Naufal Sanawa, who's a chief macro strategist at EIA All Weather Partners, and he was pointing out, just think of the mechanics of this from the CTA up front. So from trend followers, in the event that you really do see, and what we do see, if I were a trend follower, I don't think I would be long bonds anymore. So the extent to which you're getting stopped out and turned around on that, where does that feed into potentially degrossing across your book, potentially a spark for kind of more cross-asset volatility that feeds into equities that way? So it's just more the strength and abruptness of the move rather than any level that would really cause it to trickle through to equities at the index level, because CTAs obviously operate at the index level and aren't getting into any sector level bets.
So look, we just got through earnings season, and I didn't really see anything there to make me want to necessarily jump into equities. So as Lisa and I, we look at these daily moves, we kind of factor out earnings and maybe what the Fed's doing, and it kind of comes down to trade. Yet we had, Michael McKee say, be careful about that because this thing can whipsaw all around. Is it just kind of trade and momentum and algos moving this equity market higher?
I do think it's a very fair mix of both trade, kind of the changing mood music around that. I think it's become clear for quite some time that final $300 billion in tariffs, that it's very much in no one's best interest to go forward with it. Around the time when the Trump administration started to move away from that, they also started to get more into these kind of itsy bitsy, more tech type sanctions. It was a clear sign that they don't want to go that far. I think that's kind of fully been digested into markets. Markets are anticipating that none of that goes through. But I think on the other side, there was an end of the world trade that was very apparent when looking at the bond market, and that's been steadily priced out. What I have trouble doing now and trying to identify levels, and when I'm thinking about the bond market, is how far do we have to go before we've reached the kind of pricing out the end of the world trade and we're back to the muddle through pricing? And at what level are we really pricing in some serious reflation starting next year? And as we get closer and closer to 2%, it really seems to me like this is more a global reflation outlook and a lot of optimism about the future growth prospects that have swung quite dramatically in the past 3 to 4 months.
Luke, to your point, it raises a question of whether the fundamental data is bearing that out. And I think about one statistic in particular highlighted in a Financial Times story. Earnings at big U.S. companies are forecast to rise 0.8% in the fourth quarter. That's down from expectations of a 4.1% gain back in October, and a 7.2% expectation for the fourth quarter expected recently as July. It's been coming down a lot, putting us on pace, if this comes true, for the slowest earnings growth in 4 years. Please square that with the idea that we're now back to global reflation.
Yeah, I think this is something that Renaissance Macro's Neil Dutta sent out a couple days ago. Right now, the only argument in markets is, do you think markets are forward-looking and doing a good job of being forward-looking or not? You can't really do more than that, because the data, I would say they have not definitively turned, but at least at the second derivative level, they are no longer getting worse at a faster pace. And it seems like that's the entire story there, is just how forward-looking our markets and just how accurate
this to me is a liquidity story. I mean, this is what people have been saying, but that's the reason why bonds are so important. The idea that yields continue to stay low, go lower. If they don't, does that get turned on its head?
I do think that at a certain point, whether it's levels or speed, the bond market is going to serve as a break either on real activity showing up first, like this fantastic momentum we've had in the housing market. Maybe that starts to peter out. We connect it to the rise in yields we've had globally, and that kind of puts a chill on the cyclical trade. Or maybe it's just kind of the mechanics we were talking through earlier, where it's more degrossing across the book because of how badly bonds have been getting hit.
Luke Kawa, thank you so much for joining us. Luke Kawa, Bloomberg cross-asset reporter, joining us live here at the Bloomberg Look Ahead Conference here at the Bloomberg headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. The market's grinding higher yet again. Bonds selling off, but equities moving higher again. A little bit of trade rhetoric coming out of China, a little bit, perhaps a little bit more open to a deal, maybe a little bit more flexible as it relates to tariffs. We'll have to see what the response is coming from the U.S. But as we've seen time and time again, now that we are past earnings, I think the market is going to be looking even more towards some of these geopolitical and macro issues. And again, we had some rhetoric coming out of China that perhaps making a little bit of headway on the trade front. We'll keep on that story going forward. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, the House impeachment committees are hearing closed-door testimony right now from Jennifer Williams. She is a special advisor for Europe and Russia on Vice President Mike Pence's staff and was said to be on the call between Presidents Trump and Zelensky of Ukraine back on July 25th. Williams' deposition comes days before the first public impeachment hearings for Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown.
I'm hopeful that senators in both parties, all 100 of us, go into this with an open mind, not listening to our constituents, it's the only time I'll ever advocate that, not listening to our constituents, not reading our mail, about it, not being swayed by public opinion, but looking at the evidence just like a judge and a jury would do in a criminal trial.
Former National Security Advisor John Bolton was also invited to testify today. His lawyers have said he will not do so voluntarily. China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back additional tariffs on each other's goods. That's according to China's Ministry of Commerce. We get details from Bloomberg's Amy Morris.
China's key demand since the start of the negotiations has been the removal of punitive tariffs imposed by President Trump. The move could help provide a roadmap to a deal that would de-escalate the trade war. China's Ministry of Commerce spokesman says the lifting of the tariffs would depend on the content of the phase deal and is a condition for reaching that agreement. The two sides continue to negotiate over where and when a phase one deal would be signed. Sources tell Bloomberg they're considering locations in Asia and Europe. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
A Google executive and advisor to former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger is joining the Democratic primary race for Republican Senator Susan Collins' seat in Maine. Collins is expected to formally announce whether she's running for re-election later this fall. Global news on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
What's the outlook for the pound if there is another election?
Nathan Hager.
The U.S. could still delay those tariffs?
And Karen Moscow.
It is the fifth major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
1 in 10 Londoners surveyed said they'll give more to charity in the next 12 months. Are you one of them? At CAF, we help generous people like you support their favourite charities by making giving simple. And And we provide charities with the tools they need to perform at their best. So together, we can make a bigger difference for our communities. We're a charity and a champion for better giving. We are CAF, and we make giving count. Visit cafonline.org to find out more.
Just because you travel doesn't mean you can't keep your routine. The more obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to eat well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With Westin Fresh by the Juicery, you can stay revitalized with a fresh assortment of juices and smoothies. And start the day right. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Optimism on stocks is what is the result of optimism on trade talks with China. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. Yes, we're in record territory. The S&P is up 0.6%, up 18. The Dow's up 0.9%, up 243 now, and the Nasdaq's up 0.8%, up 69. The 10-year is down 28.30 seconds with a yield of 1.91%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1 3/4% at 57.33 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 1.5% at 14.7010 per ounce. The dollar yen 109.29, the euro $1.1048, the British pound $1.2825. Brazil's economy minister, Paulo Guedes, says he's terrified the world's biggest oil company skipped a high-profile oil auction that was intended to lure billions of dollars in investments. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are broadcasting live from the Year Ahead Summit at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City, running over after having just presented Allison Williams of Bloomberg Intelligence, who covers all things financials for us. And I want to focus on what you're watching in 2020. Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo in particular. Why did you pick those names?
So for Wells Fargo, obviously we have a new CEO. That's the answer we've been waiting for in the near term. But we think that this is really sort of the new beginning for Wells Fargo after years following its scandal. We think Charlie Scharf is a great pick. There was some discussion about the negotiations, given where he's going to be located. We think that, that, this is a bank where he's going to be doing a lot of work all over the country. And one of the opportunities that we see for Wells Fargo is its cost structure. Obviously, there's been a lot of legal expenses, but we think that's sort of bled into other issues, and we think that's really going to be an opportunity for Wells, versus some other companies that are already lean and mean.
So when I think of Wells Fargo, I think of a great commercial bank, a great retail bank, such a great brand. Are you concerned, or how concerned are you that their brand value has been tarnished by all the issues they've had to deal with?
So I think that was the number one concern of investors in terms of, not just the brand, but also the culture, right? So Wells Fargo is the only company over time that said that they could cross-sell, and it turned out maybe that wasn't such a great story. But if you look at some of the metrics in terms of their consumer business, they've really turned things around in terms of, you look at things like loyalty stores and customer experience. And so I think now it's really more about getting sort of the financials in shape.
When you talk about cost cutting, how the other banks are lean and mean, Wells Fargo not so much, where do you see the cuts coming?
So I think for Wells Fargo, obviously the biggest opportunity is going to be sort of the spillover effects related to some of their legal charges. They took a big legal charge in this past quarter. We think that getting that behind them is going to help them. But then, there's all these related effects in terms of costs, compliance costs. That's been a big reason why they're at the higher end of their target this year. And that sort of leads me over to the other story that you mentioned, Goldman Sachs, right? So Goldman Sachs, which has given a little bit more clarity on their cost structure, which has been a little bit of disappointing to some, but they sort of mapped out where they're making investments. We have a new management team in place there. We have an investor day for the first time ever in January, which is super exciting. And I don't think that, I think that the strongest case for Goldman is the fact that they've had a very strong, consistent culture over the years. They weren't built by a bunch of acquisitions. So I think the new leadership, it's not necessarily you're going to see a sea change, but you could see things on the margin. And the most interesting thing I think we got from Goldman this year was a big hike in their dividend. They want to be competitive with the other banks. And that's sort of signaling to us sort of the changing nature of Goldman, right? So we all think of Goldman as this big institutional house. They've stayed committed to that business. But then they have all these other newer initiatives where they're getting into consumer and online lending. We have questions about that this time in the cycle. But the point is they are becoming more bank-like.
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go with Goldman. I mean, during my entire 30-year career on Wall Street, Goldman has been the investment bank to beat for all things global corporate investment banking and I think one of the reasons was their culture and their focus. They weren't distracted by retail or commercial banking. Now you just mentioned they are, in fact, diversifying into some of those businesses. Is that a concern for investors that maybe they're kind of getting out from their knitting a little bit?
So I think it was sort of a depressing day when they announced that they were going into the consumer landscape because to me it sort of signaled how they view the future of the institutional business, right? And so that's not necessarily to say that there aren't opportunities there, but perhaps not the historic opportunities that they've had. And the consumer business, I think for investors, the concern is this the right time of the cycle and what's your competitive advantage? They'll talk about tech and risk control as their competitive advantage. Obviously, those are very strong skills that you have to have on the institutional side. Do those translate to the consumer side? I guess, I think the interesting thing for Goldman is they have this huge white space in front of them, whereas other banks are already there, right? So JP Morgan is an excellent bank, but they're already leading in so many businesses. For Goldman, they have to gain very little share to do better. And the fact that they are coming into this business at this point in the cycle, right, can they pick off all the better customers from other different people? And I think it'll be interesting on Investor Day if we get to hear a little bit more insight on what's happening there. We've gotten a few more numbers around that business, but just to hear a little bit more on the strategy.
Allison Williams, before we let you go, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you what the story of the financial sector will be in 2020. This year, I would dare say it was banks are boring again, and they're making record profits, and they're doing really well, and nobody loves them. What's next year going to bring?
I think the most interesting controversy for next year is going to be the consumer. And We saw this quarter, interest margins are something we worried about. The companies that did better were companies that were growing consumer loans. And yet, sort of out of the corner of my ear and the corner of my eye, I hear things that I'm kind of worried about in the consumer. And so I think over the next couple of quarters, we're going to be wanting to do a lot more work on what exactly is the health of the consumer. Is this growth healthy at this point in the cycle? And I think there might be a lot of back and forth around that.
Allison Williams, thank you so much for joining us. Allison Williams, she covers all things financial, all the big banks for Bloomberg Intelligence. She's been doing that for 10 years for Bloomberg Intelligence. Before that, she was at Morgan Stanley Investment Management, looking at all the big banks there. So tremendous experience. She spoke this morning here at the Year Ahead Conference, kind of highlighting some of the opportunities that she sees in 2020 for the big banks, highlighting Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs as stocks to really pay attention to in 2020, given some of the changes that are taking place at both of those banks. So really interesting.
It's also interesting to me how much in tandem banks' financials have traded with Treasury yields and the yield curve, and the idea of net interest margin really leading the way. And I'm curious next year whether we're going to see a divergence there, especially in light of the consumer.
Yep.
And I think that's something to watch too.
Yeah, exactly. So Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, the interesting names to look forward to. Risk on day today. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks powering higher. The U.S. and China may be one step closer to an interim trade deal. Beijing said the two countries have agreed to a phased rollback of tariffs on each other's goods. The shutdown of one of Canada's largest crude pipelines has shippers turning to rail to move their oil. Bloomberg has learned demand to transport crude by rail has picked up over the past week as TC Energy works to return its Keystone crude pipeline to service following a leak. Preferred pronouns have crossed into a new frontier, retail. T-Mobile announced that it would let its store personnel add their gender pronouns, say she, her, hers, or they, them, theirs to their name tags. Retail employees can also add ask me my pronouns to their badges. And Drake has joined marijuana company Canopy Growth's celebrity roster of partners. Drake joins lifestyle guru Martha Stewart, rapper Snoop Dogg, and actor Seth Rogen in working with Canopy. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code RADIO.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
This weekend, Volvo are offering 0% APR finance on a Volvo Select approved used car, which means this weekend, 0% of household chores will be finished. So visit your local Volvo retailer this weekend and drive an approved used car with 0% APR finance back home. A messy home.
Available on used vehicles up to 4 years old. Participating retailers.
50% minimum deposit on minimum finance amount of £7,000. Conditional sale, terms and conditions apply. Finance subject to status. 18 plus. Guarantee may be required. Volvo Car Financial Services.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and come to the shops with me. We can get 10% off 2 big shops a month with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and 10% off your favourite Tesco brands, including F&F in-store every day. All for $7.99 a month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online from the 8th of November. £200 max spend per shop. In-store spend only. Club card app required. Exclusions apply. See online for details.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum term as prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. The terms apply.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, the business of the cloud. We'll be talking about that. Plus, we'll look ahead to emerging markets in the on-again, off-again, now on-again trade negotiations between the U.S. and China. Right now, though, let's get some numbers. Greg Jarrett has that for us with a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Record highs, Lisa. Again, Treasury bonds are selling off. This all follows reports the U.S. and China have agreed in principle to remove some tariffs imposed during the trade difficulties. But Timer Hyatt, PGM Chief Operating Officer, tells Bloomberg the U.S. and world economies still face headwinds, and not just from politics.
And that's the fact that the working age population in the U.S. is slowing down, and the fact that China is reaching close to its technology frontier and will be less a driver of global growth than it is before. And those factors will be headwinds that in some ways might overpower what happens in the elections. But absolutely, you've got to model every single outcome today because you have no idea where things will be tomorrow, let alone in 9 months from now.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.5%, up 16. Dow's up 0.8%, up 230. Nasdaq's up 0.75%, up 61. The 10-year is down 29.30 seconds. The yield is 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.8% at 57.36 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 1.75% at 14.67 even per ounce. The dollar yen 109.28. The euro is at 110.44. British pound the dollar 28.24. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. We continue now with Lisa and Paul.
Greg Jarrett, thank you so much. Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Audi. Get exceptional offers on the Audi you've always wanted during the Season of Audi sales event. Visit your local tri-state area Audi dealer today or AudiOffers.com for more information. Well, it seems like just about everything is moving to the cloud today, and that includes gaming, e-gaming in particular. To give us some color on what is going on there, we welcome Steve Alexander. Steve is the Chief Technology Officer for the technology company Sienna. Steve, thanks so much for joining us on the phone here. Give us a sense of kind of what's happening in the gaming business as it migrates to the cloud and what role Sienna plays.
Sure thing, Paul. It's a pleasure to be talking with you folks. Sienna is a company that provides the circulatory system for the Internet. Typically, this has been thought of as the big connections that span, across the continent, under the sea, right, the very large capacity connections. And recently what's been going on, Stan has been also providing solutions out into the metro areas. So when we look at the evolution of the network, right, what the whole infrastructure has to do, it's got to get faster, it's got to get the cloud closer to the end user, and the whole infrastructure has to get smarter.
Who are your main clients?
So we sell into about the top 80% of the market for tier one carriers, large-scale enterprises, and the web scale, the big hyper giants. All the folks who use really high-capacity, mission-critical networks somewhere have Ciena equipment in their infrastructure.
So, Steve, one of the areas of just entertainment or content or usage is gaming, and I guess, is that one of the applications that also is moving to the cloud? And if so, what's the kind of the advantage there?
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely is. If you think about what the network effectively does, is it transcends distance, right? It means that if you're gaming, you could be gaming with almost anybody on the planet at any time, and that opens up the addressable market, massively. And you couple that with the other trends that are out there, right? The continued proliferation of streaming, the move to even higher definition video, the advent of the augmented reality, the virtual reality kind of environments, and you can start to, imagine this world where you've got constant, high capacity, low latency connections going, and it's just a matter of your choice, the end user's choice of, am I entertaining, am I watching, am I participating, and am I gaming, am I relaxing, and I'm sitting there watching, a beautiful 4K, 8K image from the rim of the Grand Canyon, all those things come to you by virtue of having this kind of a network.
Steve, forgive me for my ignorance, but if you could just take a 10,000 or perhaps 30,000 foot view here. We know that the cloud is taking off. My knowledge of it is limited. I think of that I can access stuff no matter where I am, and increasingly companies are trying to do that. What exactly is the connecting fiber that you're creating that sort of is different from what a company could provide for themselves?
Well, so it's a couple different pieces, Lisa. Part of it is, who actually provides the physical connection that you use, right? So it can be copper, it can be coax cable, it can be a piece of glass, an optical fiber, right? The basic physical connection that, your information is going to flow over. And then it's a matter of who is providing you the compute and storage capabilities that you're interested in. Where is the content that you're interested in looking at hosted? Maybe you're creating content. You're making images, you're taking videos, you want to upload things. So it's that combination of who gives you the connections, and then where is the content stored. And the whole point in some sense to the cloud is the ability to, as you pointed out, you just can have it anywhere, and it's accessible at any time, right? And that gives you a lot more flexibility in, really how you live your life, how you conduct your business. Your business, your customers can meet each other in the cloud. You can participate in a global marketplace because you are now cloud-based as opposed to just, based on local facilities.
Sure. And when I think about the cloud, I think of Amazon and AWS, and I think of Microsoft, and I think of some of the things that Alphabet's trying to do. I'm trying to figure out where the entire ecosystem of business opportunities stems for outlets like you.
So because we provide basic connectivity into it, right? So anything that puts demand onto the network for additional capacity, additional connections, feeds into our business because that's what we enable. We enable the circulatory system, the big flows, the connections that people want. But more and more, that's moving out to the edge, right? And the capacity of the network, the raw speed that you can get is going to increase from, what people typically think of as a fast Ethernet. Maybe a gigabit Ethernet is what people think of today as the fastest they can get. That's going to rapidly go to 10, 25 gig, 100 gig, 400 gig. In the next year or so, we're going to be able to put 400 gig in the palm of your hand. I mean, that's just a massive increase in capacity that's going to allow people to do all sorts of new things that today they can't do because they're constrained by the connections they can have.
Steve, 10 seconds. Do you think we're going to ever see 5G in the next couple years in the U.S.?
Well, sure. I mean, there's 5G trials today. The thing with 5G is it's become this massive umbrella term. Some people call it a suitcase term. We have to unpack it to understand what it means. But 5G is the combination of all the additional radios, all the different spectrum and frequencies out at the edge, but a lot more fiber and connections into the core of the network. It's connecting everything together so that you can, benefit from the machines talking to the people talking to the people. It's the Internet of Everything is what people like to talk about.
Yeah, which means a lot more business, I'm sure, for you. Thank you so much for being with us. Ciena's Chief Technology Officer, Steve Alexander, joining us. And it really has been one of the bright spots, the cloud computing services business and all of the infrastructure around it. Right now, let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager there with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, Joe and Hunter Biden must testify. Due process is being denied. Read the transcript. Those are just some of the tweets from President Trump today about impeachment as closed-door hearings continue. House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff says the first public hearings from the investigating committees will begin next week, but Judiciary Chair Gerald Nadler isn't giving a timeline for his panel.
We want to finish the process as expeditiously as possible, but we also want to do it thoroughly and in a way that will convince the American people, that the American people see what the evidence is, what the contradictory evidence is, if any, and if it's going to be done, it's got to be done right, and whatever time it requires, we'll take.
Meantime, Republicans say they'll try to subpoena the whistleblower who sparked the inquiry. One of the whistleblower's lawyers says unmasking his client would undermine our constitutional republic's ability to oversee itself. Hundreds have gathered in a remote northern Mexico farming town. They're there for the first funerals for 9 American women and children killed in a drug cartel ambush.
Dear God, everybody pray. Anja just came and said my mom's Suburban is blown up on the Fusia by the hill. Everyone, please pray.
Mexican soldiers are guarding the entrance to the town of La Mora as the breakaway Mormon family members are laid to rest. The UN's nuclear watchdog says it does not agree with Iran's claims that one of its inspectors tested positive for explosives traces. Iran made that claim about an International Atomic Energy Agency inspector. On the same day, it injected uranium gas into centrifuges at an underground complex, its most significant step away yet from the 2015 nuclear deal. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want movies, I've got blockbusters. Football, how about the Premier League? Or how about crime dramas? I've got loads, and they're never going to guess who did it. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
This weekend, Volvo are offering 0% APR finance on a Volvo Select approved used car, which means this weekend 0% of your morning run playlist will be listened to. So visit your local Volvo retailer this weekend and drive home an approved used car with 0% APR finance. You could run there, if you like.
Available on used vehicles up to 4 years old. Participating retailers. 50% minimum deposit on minimum finance amount of £7,000. Conditional sale, terms and conditions apply. Finance subject to status. 18 plus. Guarantee may be required. Volvo Car Financial Services.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, hit a shot, they score!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks have climbed to new highs today after China said it agreed with the United States of America to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. Treasuries and gold are down. We check those numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.5% up 15, while the Dow's up 0.8% up 228, and the Nasdaq's up 0.7% up 57. The 10-year is down 29.30 seconds with a yield of 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 1.7% at 57.32 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 1.9% at 14.6540 an ounce. The dollar yen stands at 109.29. The euro, $1.1046, and the British pound, $1.2823. The weekly Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index shows more wobbling among consumers, the last pillar holding up the U.S. economy. The latest report shows another broad tumble in sentiment led by flagging confidence in personal finances. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Markets brought to you by Witham. Witham's financial services team combines private equity markets expertise with deep industry insights to address the advisory, audit, and tax needs of your fund's portfolio companies. Visit witham.com/PE. We've been looking at stocks going higher, bonds losing, and yields rising. Today, I want to focus on what this all means for the dollar. Joining us now, Mark Chandler, Bannockburn Chief Market Strategist. Mark, I want to focus on the currency here because I've been looking at the emerging market FX complex rising against the dollar, and I'm wondering how much can that continue unless we get some kind of material trade deal aside from just this talk of maybe, perhaps, but at least it's not terrible.
Yeah, no, you made a good point. I mean, it seems to me that the markets, it's all one big trade right now, and I think it's like risk on. So emerging markets, and among the strongest of the majors are those currencies that are often seen as leveraged towards growth, like the Aussie and Kiwi, Sweden and Norway. And we got equity markets, like you say, we're at record highs, but Europe's at several-year highs. Asia, the MSCI Asia Pacific is near its best level for the year. So I think this is a kind of a story now in which the market really tells us the news rather than the other way around. The news is really just being used to justify, I think, what the market wanted to do, and that's a swing in sentiment away from a repeat of fourth quarter of last year, which a lot of people had been afraid of, and now I think the pendulum has swung really far the other way.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not sure. Let me ask you, do you think the data supports that? I mean, I'm not sure what's really changed in the last several weeks.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that's really changed in the last couple of weeks would be that the major countries have all eased policy. The Chinese cut rates, I think it was 5 basis points earlier this week. The Fed cut, the ECB cut. And I think that some central banks like Bank of Canada and the Bank of England that had been neutral are now like softening up their neutrality. I think what's happened is that the market investors now know interest rates will be low for longer. And what else to do with capital to preserve it, but to chase a little bit of risk, which means equity markets, emerging markets.
The idea that you raise is a good one. I think it's a really important point that the market is using the news to justify what it wanted to do anyway. Why did it want to move to a risk-on stance? Mr. Market, clearly, being monolithic.
No, I think it's really just these. I just find that like crowd psychology and market psychology, we swung so hard. People are thinking we're on the edge of a recession. Even today, the EU's cautioned that Europe should be prepared for worse news. And so I think that the pendulum of market sentiment now is just thinking that we took a step away from the abyss. That central banks responded to a slowing of the world economy, eased policy, more pressure on fiscal policy now. I think that this is just sort of as this plays out, but I agree that it's not going to be enough to avoid bad news. I'll give you an example. We're going to get the third quarter German GDP next week. And despite negative interest rates throughout the whole curve, Germany looks like they slipped into recession, meaning 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. And the Japanese news, where they also have negative interest rates, doesn't really look that much better.
And Mark, I think the risk to a lot of investors here for this change in sentiment, a little bit more positive, is that we really are just one tweet away from the trade deal being off and really off, and then all this comes apart. Is that material risk?
Yeah, I'm sensitive to that because I think that so far we've really traded on these fumes that the Chinese say the U.S. will unwind some tariffs, which has really been the opposite of what we've seen from the U.S. administration, trying to use maximum pressure. And some of these trade advisors who were instrumental in the 1980s campaigns against Japan are unlikely, I think, to really give a lot of ground here.
So I'm just wondering, we are broadcasting live from the Year Ahead conference here in Bloomberg headquarters. What's your highest conviction bet for 2020?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that right now, I would have to say that the Federal Reserve is not done with its mid-course correction and will have to cut rates again next year.
Why do you think that?
I think that we see a lot of economic data that's just like rolling over. Even the jobs number, you look at a 12-month moving average. And just now as the lead-in, I think you had the Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index. And I'm really seeing this as well with like the revolving credit, which we get the credit reports later today. But the revolving credit is going up, and we're seeing more delinquency rates on credit cards. Signs of stress creeping into the system.
Yeah, it seems like, however, Mark, I mean, the market here feels like as long as people have jobs and wages are up, kind of that 3%, that means the consumer's pretty solid. Is that not your read?
No, I'd say that the consumer is getting tired. And I think they're going to see that in the upcoming data. We're already, I think, beginning to see some early signs of it. I take a look at those auto sales that came out on November 1st last week. They were sort of obscured by the jobs data. And auto sales, I think, were the weakest in several months. And we're not seeing it just in the U.S., but around the world. Very weak auto sales. These are the biggest durable good items that most households buy.
So which asset do you think is going to perform the worst given that environment with the consumer not perhaps able to hold up the economy as much as it has?
Yeah, no, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I think that we've seen depressed business investments for a long time, but maybe some of the interest rate sensitive sectors that benefit from low interest rates, housing, furnishing, construction, things like that on the margin might be able to hold up better because of the low interest rates.
So, Mark, we had some reporting just on today's price action in the equity markets. Only two sectors in the S&P of the 11 were down, and that's REITs and utilities. My guess is you think that is probably a little premature.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like to really make money, I think it's not really just trying to play with these fads. There's not so many people who are really, you think about it, are really like day trading these things. So oftentimes our commentary, our analysis is aimed for them. I think taking a longer-term look at things and trying to keep an eye for what value means in this kind of environment.
Mark Chandler, thanks so much for joining us. Mark Chandler, Chief Market Strategist at Bonk & Byrne, joining us on the phone, giving us thoughts of the market. Certainly a more conservative view of the market, Lisa, than maybe some of the other folks we've heard from recently.
And it's interesting. It echoes what Allison Williams of Bloomberg Intelligence was saying as well. The focus next year for her will also be on the consumer, in particular, the consumer credit, given the fact that banks like Goldman Sachs have been expanding into this area. Interesting to sort of see the push-pull here. Some of the jobless data that came in earlier today even showing ongoing strength in the jobs numbers, yet people pointing to the increase in delinquencies, the slowdown in auto sales, and other sorts of signs as perhaps signals that the consumer is losing steam. It's kind of the major debate potentially leading up to next year.
Absolutely, because we know that the manufacturing and business investment has been weak, and it has been the consumer that's been supporting this economy. So need to pay attention on developments affecting the consumer. We're broadcasting live from the Year Ahead Conference, Bloomberg here, headquarters in New York City, alongside my colleague and co-host Lisa Abramowitz. I'm Paul Sweeney, and this is Bloomberg.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings. The world.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hello, Vitality Health Insurance.
Oh, hi. Is it true if I join Vitality, I get de facto 5-star rated cover, can speak to a GP 24/7, get rewarded for staying active with things like Starbucks coffee, get a little sausage dog to live with me, and you could beat my current premium by up to 10%?
Absolutely. Except one of those.
It's the dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
Of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide. I'm David Weston. Welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. On the brief today, Michael McKee here in New York on a possible staged reduction in Chinese tariffs. David Powell from London on continued concerns over European growth. And from Washington, Bill Ferries on new developments in the impeachment inquiry. In the meantime, I understand that there is a redhead coming across the terminal right now, Mike. It's just for you. The United States says the first China trade deal would include tariff rollback. That seems like a bit of a confirmation on what we heard out of China overnight.
We did hear from the Ministry of Commerce in China overnight that if there was an agreement, and they emphasized the word if, that there would be a rollback of tariffs. Now, we don't know, and I don't know whether the Bloomberg story here gives us any more details, what they're referring to, which tariffs they're referring to. Will they be rolled back? There were the tariffs that the administration put on about $112 billion worth of Chinese goods September 1st. There were the October 15th tariff increase that the president canceled already, and there's another round of increases expected to go in on December 15th. Are those going to be canceled? Still a lot at play here.
It seems like every day there's some tantalizing tidbit that comes out of Beijing or out of Washington, but we still don't know exactly what have they agreed to, what haven't they agreed to, what tariffs are included, and when does it all happen?
Which always makes me smile when we see the markets go up on these headlines, because you remember back in June, the two presidents at the G20 meeting came out and said, well, trade war is on hold, things are going to move forward, we're going to make a deal, and then nothing happened and the president imposed more tariffs. So anything is possible at this point. But it does seem, particularly since the Chinese are talking about it, that there is some sort of agreement. Now, the devil will be in the details, and we don't know from what we've heard so far that there's any particular gain for either side in this. But if they just don't make things worth, that might be considered a win.
But if this plays out the way it seems to be pointing at the moment, it does feel like the Chinese kind of got their way a bit, because they were always saying, we're not going to do a deal unless we get some of these tariffs rolled back. And President Trump said, we're not going to roll back the tariffs till we get an overall deal. This sounds like maybe we'll roll back some of the tariffs. As you say, we don't know which ones, even short of a total overall conclusion of the deal.
Well, this deal is structured around the idea that China gives something, that China buys U.S. goods, that China changes its intellectual property laws, that China agrees to a currency monitoring regime. The U.S. wasn't going to do anything, and so to give the Chinese cover to do this, that may have been what happened. A number of more pragmatic Chinese negotiators in the White House, like Robert Lighthizer, didn't want those September 1st tariffs. So they probably, they could have been able to convince the president, get rid of those. We didn't need them in the first place. It's a sign to the Chinese, and this will enable us to move forward.
Okay, great reporting from Mike McCann, a story that is developing even as we speak. That's U.S.-China trade negotiations. Meanwhile, the European Commission is cutting its growth forecast for the European area, partly because of trade uncertainty. Let's bring in now Bloomberg's David Powell. He's over in London. So this is not very happy news for Europe, David.
Exactly. The European Commission has downgraded its outlook for growth for this year and for next year, and that is a reflection of this slowdown in manufacturing around the world that has been induced by the trade war started by the United States and the uncertainty that has caused.
Well, that's the question. They're saying a lot of it is because of the trade war. Is that right, or are there also underlying challenges, structural challenges in Europe?
Well, Europe has plenty of structural challenges, but so do a lot of other places in the world. What accounts for the slowdown we've seen this year, though, is primarily that trade war. In Bloomberg Economics, we've created a gauge of uncertainty that looks at financial market variables and surveys and mentions of uncertainty in the press. And you can see that it's been very elevated this year, and it's had a negative impact on the economy. The good news is that that's starting to come down. So essentially, people are starting to think that ahead of the presidential election that we have coming up in the United States, the U.S. will de-escalate this trade war, that the United States will decide not to impose tariffs on European autos, and that will reduce uncertainty and provide a bit of a boost for the European economy next year.
Okay, David, thank you so much for joining us. That's David Powell reporting from London. And now let's turn to Bloomberg's Bill Ferries in Washington, D.C., because we're getting now more information on what happened behind those closed doors, and some of the transcripts are indicating maybe it's a bit of a bigger issue that President Trump is facing in this impeachment inquiry than we thought.
Right. There's been a lot of focus, David, on this idea of a quid pro quo by Ukraine and the U.S. For Ukraine to get military aid and for the U.S., the Trump administration to get an investigation into Joe Biden and his son and some background on what happened during the 2016 election. What the transcripts we've seen this week have shown, however, is that there was also a very different deal in mind, and that really centered around an Oval Office meeting between the new Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Trump. It was something the Ukrainians wanted very badly, and the U.S. officials clearly realized that. And the transcripts this week are really laying that out in a little bit more detail. We have a text message from Paul Volcker, Kurt Volker, the envoy to Ukraine, basically saying Ukraine needs to convince President Trump that they're willing to look into what happened in 2016 and the Bidens in order to get that meeting. And that really followed up on a public tweet from Rudy Giuliani in June, where he was criticizing the Ukrainian government for not having already started an investigation into the Bidens. So this kind of adds an interesting detail to the focus on whether there really was a quid pro quo, and it's something we expect the impeachment inquiry to dig further into, particularly as we head into public hearings next week.
Well, that's just what I was going to ask you about, Bill, because this is the transcripts of things that happen behind closed doors, as I said. But next week, I guess before Judiciary Committee, we're actually going to have some public hearings. What do we expect? What's important there?
Well, one of the leadoff witnesses will be William Taylor. He was the ambassador, the temporary ambassador to the Ukraine, who was handpicked by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in May after the U.S. recalled the previous ambassador, Marie Yovanovitch. He has earned a reputation as a detailed note taker. It's his testimony that's really helped fill in a lot of the gaps in terms of the timing of various discussions, what was going on between the official channel led by the State Department and some of Mike Pompeo's envoys, and this unofficial channel led by President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Those two channels were often working at cross purposes, it seemed, to each other. And Bill Taylor was often Ambassador Bill Taylor was often at the center of those two parallel tracks.
Okay, many thanks to Bloomberg's Nick Wadhams reporting from Washington. Bill Ferries, I beg your pardon, and we're going to have more with him coming up in our second hour on Bloomberg Radio. No, we'll actually have Nick Wadhams in the second hour. We just had Bill Ferries, but it's going to be the same subject. Now let's get a check on how the markets are reading on today's top stories. And joining us now is Abigail Doolittle. So I see actually there was a spike with this news about possible rollback, although it's come down some.
It's come down a little bit. We're a little bit off the highs, but no doubt these trade headlines and the idea that both now the U.S. and China are saying that there is likely to be some sort of phase one deal that will include rollbacks. Stocks overall on the day reacting very well. But we also have a couple key earnings reports here that are doing well also because of this trade news. But Qualcomm, the chip maker, they put up a better than expected quarter. They also raised the outlook. A lot of that having to do with 5G. And then Baidu, those shares are absolutely soaring. That has to do, that's basically the Google of China, if you will. They did very well. The stock up more than 10%. Investors, analysts are saying that they could really be poised to go straight ahead. So here in the U.S., the influence is the fact that Alphabet is the top stock for the communication services sector and one of the top sectors. So both of those stocks getting the trade lift because apparently Baidu is also saying that they have not seen a big economic slowdown because of the trade war. But you put that together with these strong quarters, and we have a nice tailwind for stocks on the day.
Right, just what we wanted. Okay, yes. Thank you so much to Abigail Doolittle. Thanks very much for the report. We turn now to Viviana Hurtado for Bloomberg First Word News.
David, we begin with that news that broke at the top of your show, or I should say the UK Labour Party equality spokeswoman wants to become its deputy leader. Don Butler's declaration coming after the current deputy Tom Watson announced he'll step down. This on the day of the upcoming election campaign. Butler speaking exclusively with Bloomberg in London.
I thought very carefully about who should replace Tom, and after giving it some thought, I will be throwing my hat in the ring. I've got a track record of being very supportive to our leader, Jeremy Corbyn, and ensuring that the Labour Party is on the front foot.
Watson's pending departure is seen as a major blow to the party at the start of campaigning. Butler's emergence is a sign of how much power has shifted firmly to Labour's socialist wing. And France's President Emmanuel Macron warning President Donald Trump's neglect of U.S. allies is killing NATO. Macron telling The Economist that's causing an existential threat for America's transatlantic partners. Last month, he was infuriated President Trump withdrew U.S. troops from Syria, this without first consulting NATO members. And over to Burkina Faso, gunmen there ambushing a convoy. It was transporting workers of Canadian gold producer Semafo. At least 38 people were killed in the assault. To date, it's the deadliest Islamist militant attack there, and it comes when prices are rallying and gold producers are pouring money into the region. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Viviana Hurtado. This is Bloomberg. David.
Thanks so much, Viviana. Coming up, good news may be coming on the trade front. But do Democrats really want a deal with China? We ask our political panel next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
This is the sound of Helen and Peter, hiking to the fairy tale fortress high above the winter wonderland below. Or it would be, if they hadn't stopped at the first beer house they came to. There it is, Helen and Peter. There's your Incredible. Fly from London Gatwick to Salzburg from £29 each way. With British Airways, Incredible is within reach. Terms and conditions apply. Limited availability and dates. Fare quoted is each way based on a return. cba.com/Gatwick for details.
What if your email was organized by project and not by date? What if everyone looked at the same thing instead of their own inbox? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Forget your fragmented, jumbled inbox and make the change to channels in Slack. Spaces dedicated to individual projects, topics, or teams. All your communication is neatly organized and everyone is on the same page. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
Spot a bargain in the Debenhams Spectacular event. Up to 30% off throughout the store and up to 15% off beauty and fragrance. Shop now in store and at Debenhams.com.
Okay, Mr. Smith, tell me what happened.
Well, I just sat down when pow.
Pow?
Pow, right in the mouth.
And can you describe the assailants?
There were 3 of them.
And how are they dressed?
With rosemary garnish and a red wine jus.
Jus?
Jus.
What's like a gravy, is it? Oh. Any potatoes at the scene?
Oh, yes. Mashed with garlic.
That's a serious assault.
There was no salt.
Lamb. Hits you in the chops. More knockout recipes at simplylamb.co.uk.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month. £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre. But you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Far wing elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
the
it.
sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on
Search
the right.
NBA today to start listening.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Philadelphia, Delaware County for the first time is on Democratic civil war. It goes back to the Civil War since they had. I mean, this is crazy. We need to address these. And I think going back to the China deal, if we can get a China deal, that certainly helps. And we need USMCA. We have to get Nancy Pelosi to drive that forward.
So, Matt, how much of that issue in the suburbs is more social issues rather than economic issues? And to turn it back to the Democrats, I keep asking, who is the Trump voting Republican last time around who will switch their vote based on the economy, given where we are in the economy? Got really low unemployment, really low inflation.
The problem is not unemployment. People can get a job. The problem is that the jobs don't pay enough to support a middle-class life for a lot of people, particularly in bigger metro areas. 67% of people who work full-time do not have kind of a middle-class life based on what they earn and what their benefits are. So I think the biggest economic problem isn't unemployment. It's this feeling that they're running in place and that there isn't real opportunity to get ahead. I think trade deals will have a relatively marginal impact in the suburbs. They're very important in areas like Iowa and in rural Wisconsin where farmers are acutely aware of what's going on with trade. I think suburban voters are kind of less tuned into that.
So, Sarah, this was going to be, I think, a fascinating election anyway, but now we have this little thing called an impeachment inquiry that's going to go public next week. How does it factor in? I know when I talk to Democrats in the House of Representatives, they say this is not a political issue, this is a matter of the Constitution, but it will have political effects potentially.
He certainly will have political effects, but right now we're just pleased it's coming out into the open. And what I'm finding as I travel the country talking to suburban women, they're kind of paying attention, but they're really paying much more attention to their needs as health care, the needs of education, and frankly, equal pay amendment. Those are what they're focusing on, and impeachment is kind of a side story for them.
But what does the Republican Party have to say to those people? More importantly, pointedly, what does President Donald Trump say to those women?
He's not handling that well right now. So we're hoping that he can continue to fire up his base, which he's doing, and then pivot and start talking about health care, prescription drug costs, hospital transparency, and start feeding the suburban women what they need. Because as we talked about Tuesday night, we are on fire in suburban districts, and we have got to understand this in order to try to get the House back and to hold the Senate.
So, Matt, the Democratic Party may be on fire, but they certainly are divided about health care, which Sarah just referred to. Yeah. I mean, you're in danger, I think, the Democratic Party, of turning it from an advantage to a disadvantage. Voters were afraid of Donald Trump and their health care. Now they're afraid that Elizabeth Warren's going to take away their insurance policy.
That's exactly right. We're about to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Right now, people are angry about how the Republicans and Trump in particular have managed health care. They've kind of taken shots at the Affordable Care Act, prescription drug prices. Nothing has happened. But it is very dangerous for Democrats to be talking about Medicare for all, and that is why we have been pushing very hard to get Warren and others to back off of that. It is absolute political poison.
So Sarah, there's some division among the Democrats about their plan. I'm not sure what President Trump's plan even is. Is there a plan that he's running on in 2020 for health care?
Not that he's talking about, but our members certainly are talking about it. First of all, Elizabeth Warren, I think, is trying to bankrupt the country. What we're trying to do as we talk about health care is, as I said, lower prescription drugs, do transparency, start to give choices to the American people on how they pay for their prescription drugs. Can they get, do they always have to go to the pharmacy? Can they do mail-ins? I mean, there's a lot of things we're looking at kind of around the edges why Elizabeth Warren focuses on bankrupting us. Because you know what? People didn't like ACA. They're certainly not going to like the government totally taking over the health care.
Okay, many thanks to our political panel of Matt Bennett here in New York and Sarah Chamberlain down in Washington. Still ahead, a Saudi spy plot. It turns out that 2 Twitter employees may have been using the service to spy on users for the Saudi Arabian government. That's coming up next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
You don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, they're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Trouble for Twitter. 2 former employees of the company and a Saudi national were charged by the U.S. with helping the government in Riyadh spy on dissidents who use the social network. For more, let's bring in now Bloomberg Technology's Kurt Wagner in San Francisco. So, Kurt, I certainly was struck by this when it crossed yesterday afternoon. What is it exactly they say that these individuals did?
Yeah, the claims here are that these former employees of Twitter basically used their access inside the company to look up the, personal information or the records or the accounts of people who might not be, or people who were critical of the Saudi royal family. And so they used their ability as employees to kind of pull private information that would not have otherwise been accessible to someone from the outside. As you probably know, Twitter does allow people to be anonymous on their service, so oftentimes you don't know who's actually running an account, but an employee might be able to pull an email, a name, a phone number, and therefore tie an identity of an account to an actual person.
So, Kurt, usually when we think about spying or espionage, we think of espionage against a government, not against individuals. Is this basically an espionage claim? I understand it was on behalf, allegedly, of the Saudi Arabian government, but it wasn't of the U.S. government.
No, but that is kind of what the claim is here, because these are what the DOJ is saying are foreign influence actors, right? So they are being paid by a foreign government or rewarded by a foreign government for using their position here. One of the employees did work in the San Francisco office for Twitter, and so this is kind of the idea, is that they were spies essentially for the Saudi royal family.
So, Kurt, what's Twitter saying? And specifically, do they have any safeguards in place to make sure their employees that have access to this can't get it for the wrong reason?
So Twitter came out and they thanked the DOJ, they thanked the U.S. government. They kind of had a pretty boilerplate statement, but they did say in the statement that, one of the things they try to do is limit what employees can access internally. They did not share specifics around which employees are able to access which data. You may remember a few years ago, right before an employee quit, I believe he temporarily suspended the President Donald Trump's Twitter account, and that raised some questions around what kind of access employees inside of these tech companies might have to individual user accounts. And so we've seen both at Facebook and Twitter and Google and YouTube, we've seen these platforms really try to play up the idea that a lot of this information is locked down, but clearly we see issues where it keeps coming up.
Okay, Kurt, thank you so much for the reporting from San Francisco. That's Kurt Wagner of Bloomberg Intelligence. And now let's stick on Twitter for our stock of the hour. The shares are lower today a bit, but it's not necessarily about those Saudi spying allegations. Katie Lyons is here to tell us what's going on with that stock. You can see it bouncing back down and then back up again.
Yeah, it started the day much lower than it is now. Now we have to say we do have a broader rally in the market happening. Nonetheless, it is still down. And I would start by saying these allegations don't do Twitter any favors here. I mean, the last thing you want if you're a big tech social media company is to have your name in the headlines for reasons such as this as it relates to user data privacy. It's just not something that you want to see, especially with all the ire you've already drawn from Capitol Hill on those issues. So put that aside. Then we look at the fundamentals. Twitter actually also got a downgrade today over at Evercore. The analyst Kevin Rippey over there downgraded to underperform. He said he just was too optimistic on what Twitter's long-term profit growth could actually look like. He says that they have been benefiting from the fact that they haven't been investing that much in things like R&D. And when you think back to Twitter's most recent quarter, they reported revenue on advertising really missed the bar, and they blamed a bug for it. And he says that stems from, underdeveloping these things. He says when you do have to spend more on R&D, that's eventually going to cripple their profit, and they just don't think revenue is going to keep pace with the kind of spending that takes.
And as you suggested, that's part of a longer story with Twitter. They're not growing users as fast, but they say we're going to get more money for the users we have. And the question is, can they monetize those users?
Well, it's a very good question. And actually, they did in the surprise. The last quarter they reported surprised in two ways. User growth actually was strong. It was the advertising revenue that really surprised to the downside. And of course, this reminds me with Twitter and the conversations we've been having about it in recent weeks as it relates to political advertising. Yes, it's not that big of a financial part of the equation, about $3 million in last midterm cycle. But nonetheless, they're removing those political ads. That also takes down revenue. So if there's any question about the existing revenue they will have on the platform, that's not a great sign for Twitter.
Bumpy road for Twitter.